Welcome back to my YouTube channel. A story a day. The shattered beginning. The late afternoon sun bled across the skyline of Brooksville, painting the sky in muted streaks of orange and red. Inside a modest two-bedroom apartment on the city's east side, Amara Johnson sat cross-legged on her bed, a history textbook open in front of her. Her dark curls were tied back with a worn-out scrunchie, and her eyes scanned the pages with the kind of focus that came only from discipline and determination. Amara wasn't like most kids her age. At 16, she carried herself with a maturity that often surprised adults. She was quiet, observant, and deeply sensitive to the world around her. While other students in her high school talked about weekend parties or Instagram followers, Amara dreamed of something bigger, getting into college, becoming the first in her family to study law, and giving her mother a life free of struggle. Her mother, Naomi Johnson, was everything to her. Naomi worked 2 jobs, cleaning offices at night and working as a cashier in the mornings. She rarely had time for herself, but she always had time for Amara. They were more like sisters than mother and daughter, confiding in each other, laughing late into the night, and holding on to each other when life got cruel. But life, Amara knew, could be very cruel. At school, Amara was an outsider. Not because she lacked intelligence, she was one of the top students in her grade, but because of her skin, her quiet demeanor, and her refusal to play along with the toxic popularity games that ruled the hallways. Chloe Miller, with her platinum blonde hair, designer clothes, and father on the school board, made sure Amara never forgot her place. "Hey, scholarship girl," Chloe sneered one morning in the hallway, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "How much did those shoes cost?" $10 at the thrift store. Her sidekicks, Emma and Brooke, laughed cruelly, their giggles echoing off the lockers. Amara tightened her grip on her books, her heart racing. She had learned long ago that answering back only made things worse. The sting wasn't in the words. It was in the way the entire hallway seemed to join the mockery with their silence. Every time Chloe humiliated her, no one stepped in. Not the teachers. Not the students. The silence was complicity. That day in English class, Amara tried to bury herself in her writing assignment, but she could feel Chloe's eyes on her. A crumpled piece of paper landed on her desk. She unfolded it slowly, her stomach sinking. "Nobody wants you here. Go back to where you came from." Her chest tightened. The words blurred on the page as tears threatened to surface, but she forced them down. She couldn't cry, not here, not in front of them. When the bell rang, she slipped out quickly, clutching her notebook like a shield. That evening, Naomi noticed the heaviness in her daughter's eyes as they ate dinner together. Cheap takeout noodles because Naomi had no energy to cook after her double shift. "You're quiet today," Naomi said gently, twirling her fork. "Something happened at school." Amara hesitated. She didn't want to add to her mother's burdens. Naomi already carried the weight of bills, rent, and endless hours of work. But the words pushed their way out anyway. "They don't like me there, Mom," Amara whispered. "They make fun of me, every single day." Naomi's face hardened, her protective instinct flaring. Who's been bothering you?" "Just some girls," Amara said quickly, staring at her plate. "It doesn't matter. I can handle it." But Naomi reached across the table and took her daughter's hand. Her eyes softened with pain. "Amara, listen to me. You don't deserve this. You hear me. You are smart, beautiful, and stronger than you know. They don't define you." Amara nodded, but the words lingered like a fragile shield against an army too relentless. The bullying didn't stop. It escalated. The following week, Chloe and her friends cornered Amara in the locker room after gym class. Chloe shoved her against the lockers, the clang reverberating through the empty room. "You think you're better than us because you get straight A's." Chloe hissed, her face inches from Amara's. "Newsflash, you're nothing. Nobody likes you." Amara's pulse thundered in her ears. She wanted to run, but Chloe blocked her path while Emma and Brooke laughed, recording the scene on their phones. "Say something," Chloe demanded. But Amara stayed silent, her lips trembling. Chloe's smirk widened. "That's what I thought." She shoved Amara harder this time, and Amara stumbled, hitting the corner of the bench. Pain shot up her side, but she swallowed it. She couldn't give them the satisfaction of her tears. By the time she got home, a bruise was already forming. She told Naomi she'd fallen during gym. Naomi frowned but didn't press. She knew her daughter well enough to sense when she was hiding something. but she also knew pushing too hard would only make her retreat further. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. It was a rainy Friday afternoon. Most students had already left campus, but Amara stayed late to finish an assignment in the library. As she walked out with her backpack slung over her shoulder, she saw Chloe and her gang waiting near the side of the building. Amara froze. "Well, well," Chloe said, her voice carrying over the patter of rain. "Look who we have here. All alone." Amara's chest tightened. "I don't want any trouble. Just let me go home." Chloe smirked. "Trouble? Oh, sweetheart, you are the trouble." Before Amara could react, Brooke grabbed her backpack and yanked it off her shoulders. Emma shoved her forward, sending her sprawling into the mud. The rain soaked through her clothes as she struggled to stand. "Stop!" Amara cried, but her voice cracked with desperation. Chloe loomed over her, her expression twisted with cruelty. "You think you belong here? You don't. You're just a charity case." Emma laughed, filming the entire attack on her phone. "This is gold." Amara tried to crawl away, but Chloe grabbed her hair and slammed her head against the ground. White-hot pain exploded in her skull. The world dimmed, fading into darkness. When they finally left her there, unconscious and broken in the rain, Amara didn't move. Her body lay limp, her breath shallow. Hours later, a janitor found her and called for help. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and despair. Naomi rushed through the sliding doors, her heart in her throat. "Where's my daughter?" she cried at the front desk. A nurse led her down the corridor to a room where Amara lay motionless, tubes running from her nose, monitors beeping steadily beside her. Her face was pale, her lips cracked, and a bandage wrapped around her head. Naomi's knees buckled. She collapsed into the chair beside the bed, clutching her daughter's cold hand. "What did they do to you, baby?" she whispered, tears streaming down her face. The doctor entered, his expression grave. "Mrs. Johnson, your daughter sustained severe head trauma. She's in a coma. We don't know when, or if, she'll wake up." The words shattered Naomi's world. She pressed her forehead against Amara's hand, her sobs shaking the room. In that moment, grief and love fused into something sharper, darker. She vowed silently, through the salt of her tears, "They will pay for this. Every single one of them." The steady beeping of the heart monitor was the only sound filling the sterile hospital room. Naomi Johnson sat at her daughter's bedside, her fingers wrapped tightly around Amara's limp hand. Days had passed since the attack, and the once lively 16-year-old had not stirred, her face pale beneath the harsh fluorescent lights. Naomi had barely left the hospital. She refused to eat properly, refused to sleep in the cot offered by the nurses. Every night she sat, staring at her daughter's face, willing her to open her eyes. Sometimes she whispered old bedtime stories. Sometimes she sang lullabies in a trembling voice. Anything, to coax her daughter back. But Amara remained locked in silence. On the third day, Dr. Patel, the neurologist, spoke to Naomi in the hallway. His tone was kind but clinical, a balance Naomi despised in that moment. "Mrs. Johnson, your daughter has sustained significant trauma to the brain. She is stable, but the swelling is concerning. We cannot predict if or when she will regain consciousness. The best we can do now is wait." "Wait." Naomi's voice cracked with anguish. "My baby is lying in there because of monsters, and you want me to just wait?" Dr. Patel's face softened. "I understand your pain, but medically, that's all we can do right now. Give her time." Time. Naomi felt the word like a cruel joke. Every second that passed was torture. By the end of the week, the police came. Detective Harris, a middle-aged man with weary eyes, entered the hospital room with a notepad. Naomi Stry. The end of the week, the police came. Detective Harris, a middle-aged man with weary eyes, entered the hospital room with a notepad. Naomi straightened in her chair, fire flashing in her exhausted gaze. "Finally," she muttered. "Finally, someone is here to do something." Detective Harris cleared his throat. "Mrs. Johnson, we've spoken to a few students at Brooksville High. It seems there may have been an altercation." "An altercation?" Naomi repeated, her voice rising. "My daughter was beaten into a coma. That's not an altercation, that's attempted murder." Harris raised his hands, defensive. "I understand your frustration, ma'am, but so far, we don't have clear witnesses. Nobody wants to talk. Naomi's mouth fell open in disbelief. Nobody wants to talk? What about the security cameras? The staff? Someone saw something. Harris shifted uncomfortably. The security cameras near the East Wing were reportedly down due to maintenance. And the principal insists the school has a zero-tolerance policy on bullying. Without solid evidence, our hands are tied. Naomi stared at him, her heart pounding. So you're telling me nothing will be done? Harris closed his notebook, his voice low. Unless someone comes forward or there's video proof, it will be difficult to pursue charges. Naomi felt as though the ground had opened beneath her. She wanted to scream, to shake him until he understood. But the detective simply offered a sympathetic look before leaving, the sound of his footsteps echoing down the corridor like a cruel reminder she was alone in this fight. 2 days later, Naomi went to the school. She walked through the front doors of Brooksville High with fire in her veins. The receptionist looked up nervously as Naomi demanded to see the principal. In his office, Principal Reynolds sat behind a polished mahogany desk, his tie perfectly knotted, his smile thin and insincere. "Mrs. Johnson," he began smoothly, "I want to express how deeply saddened we are about what happened to your daughter. The entire school community is praying for her recovery." Naomi leaned forward, her voice sharp. "Prayers won't bring my daughter back. I want to know what you're doing about the girls who attacked her." Reynolds clasped his hands together, feigning sympathy. "I assure you, we take these matters very seriously. But at this point, we don't have confirmation about who is involved. Rumors spread quickly among students, sometimes unfairly. We cannot act on speculation." Naomi's nails dug into the armrest of her chair. Speculation? Everyone knows who it was. Chloe Miller and her little gang. Ask anyone. And what about the phones? Kids record everything these days. Someone has it. Reynolds sighed, his eyes flickering with something Naomi recognized. Fear, not for her daughter, but for his school's reputation. "Mrs. Johnson, please understand. Chloe's father is on the school board. Without solid proof, pursuing disciplinary action could result in complications." Complications? Naomi spat. "My daughter is fighting for her life, and you're worried about complications." Reynolds leaned back, his tone clipped now. "We are doing everything within our policy. But if you want more, perhaps you should let the authorities handle it." Naomi stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "Don't worry. I will handle it. And when I'm done, you'll wish you had listened to me." She stormed out of the office, her chest heaving, her vision blurred with fury. That night, Naomi sat beside Amara's bed again, holding her hand tightly. She thought of the principal's polished lies, the detective's excuses, the silence of the students who watched but said nothing. The system had failed her. The school had failed her. The world had failed her. She looked at her daughter, her beautiful girl who had done nothing wrong but exist in a world too cruel to embrace her. Naomi's heart cracked open wider with every shallow breath Amara took. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "I swear to you, baby, they will pay. Every single one of them. I will not rest until this school feels what I feel. Until they know what it means to lose everything." Her grief was no longer just grief. It was a storm. And it was growing. The following days only fueled the fire. Naomi discovered that Emma and Brooke had uploaded clips of the attack online, but quickly deleted them once word spread of Amara's condition. Still, traces remained, screenshots, whispers among students. Naomi confronted Detective Harris with this, but he only shook his head. "Without the full video or a willing witness, it's not admissible," he said. Naomi's voice trembled with rage. "You mean to tell me kids are walking around with proof of what happened to my daughter, and you're just going to ignore it?" Harris sighed. "I don't make the rules. I enforce them." Naomi's hands clenched into fists. Then maybe it's time someone broke the rules. At the hospital, Naomi began to notice something else. The longer she sat, the less she felt like a grieving mother, and the more she felt like a woman sharpening her soul into a weapon. The whispers of nurses about her daughter's slim chances. The pitying glances from strangers. The silence from the school community, who acted as if Amara's suffering was an inconvenience to their routines. It all became kindling for the fire raging inside her. On the 10th night, as she sat in the dark beside Amara's bed, Naomi whispered not to her daughter but to herself, They think they can silence me. They think they can bury this. But I will show them. I will show them what a mother's love looks like when it's a mother's awakening. The rain had returned, streaking against the hospital window like silver tears. Naomi sat rigid in the chair beside her daughter's bed, staring at the steady rise and fall of Amara's chest. It had been nearly 3 weeks since the attack, and the silence was unbearable. Amara's eyes remained closed, her world locked away in darkness, while Naomi's world turned into a prison of grief and rage. But Naomi was not the same woman who had walked into the hospital 3 weeks ago, begging for help. Something inside her had shifted. The helplessness had burned away, replaced by a resolve sharper than steel. She wasn't going to sit by and wait anymore. Digging for truth. Naomi started showing up at Brooksville High every day. At first, she pretended it was to collect assignments for her daughter. Teachers gave her awkward smiles, avoiding eye contact. Students whispered in the hallways when she passed. She noticed how the atmosphere changed whenever she entered a room. Conversations died. Laughter faded. It was as if she carried death on her shoulders, and no one wanted to be touched by it. But Naomi was watching, listening, collecting fragments. One afternoon, she overheard 2 juniors whispering in the cafeteria. I heard Chloe freaked out because the video was leaked. Yeah, but her dad made her delete it. He's covering everything up. Naomi's pulse quickened. She approached the table, her eyes blazing. What video? The boys froze, their faces pale. And nothing. Naomi slammed her hand on the table, making them jump. Tell me. Finally, one of them stammered. It was the fight, the attack. Emma posted it on her story. But it's gone now. Naomi's chest heaved. Proof. It had existed. She walked out of the cafeteria, her hands trembling, not with fear, but with determination. The wall of silence. The next day, Naomi demanded a meeting with Principal Reynolds again. She stormed into his office without knocking, slamming her palms on his desk. I know there was a video, she said, her voice shaking with fury. Students saw it. Don't you dare tell me you don't know about it. Reynolds's fake sympathy slipped, revealing the cold calculation underneath. Mrs. Johnson, barging into my office and making baseless accusations won't help your daughter. Naomi's eyes narrowed. Baseless? You're covering for them. Because Chloe Miller's daddy pays for this school's pretty new gym. Because you're afraid of losing your job. Reynolds's jaw tightened. Be very careful with your words. No, Naomi hissed, leaning closer. You be careful. Because I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of anyone in this building anymore. If the system won't protect my daughter, I'll burn the system down myself. For the first time, she saw fear flicker in Reynolds's eyes. The allies. Naomi realized she couldn't do this alone. Late one night at the hospital cafeteria, a young nurse approached her. You don't know me.